Well, hello, Dolly.
Let's break something from the start. You've been taught to be accessible, to smile when you don't want to respond when you shouldn't, to justify yourself, even when no one has asked. You've been conditioned to be reachable, moldable, predictable. And the worst part is that you accepted it as if it were normal. But tell me, what has that accessibility done for you? Has it given you peace? Has it given you power number? It has turned you into an emotional puppet, reacting to every gesture, every word, every hint. People read you. And when they see that you jump with every push, they push you harder. Because yes, the world is full of experts at pressing buttons, but they only work if those buttons are within reach. And this is where the concept that very few understand comes in becoming unreachable. Not as a way of escaping, but as an act of dominance, of absolute self-control, of inner power. We are not talking about building walls to not feel. We are talking about learning not to react. Because every time you react, you expose yourself. Every time you explode, justify yourself, or rush to explain why you did what you did, you're giving away your power. Silence is not calmness. It's strategy, and mystery is not indifference. It's magnetism. There are people who enter a room and without saying a word dominate the atmosphere. Not because they shout louder, but because they've learned not to be an open book. They don't give you access to their interior in exchange for crumbs of attention. They don't rush to explain, justify, or please because they understand something that the rest still don't. The less you give, the more they want to know. Humans are addicted to what they can't control, what is mysterious, what escapes, what doesn't yield to other people's judgment. That's why unreachable people generate intrigue, because they don't bend, because they know how to let go. And here we reach another crucial point. Learning to let go is not a loss. It's a liberation. Let go of that relationship that suffocates you, that job that drains you, that commitment that ties you without meaning. Let go of the need to understand everything, to be right, to be validated, because the more you try to hold on, the more you depend. And dependence is the opposite of personal power. You can't be unreachable if you constantly need validation, approval, or applause. Stopping explaining is also a way of letting go. You don't have to justify your decisions. You don't have to give reasons to protect your peace. You don't have to convince anyone that you're a good person. Because the truth is this: those who judge you already have a story written about you, and they're not looking for data. They're looking for confirmation. Don't feed their narratives. Shut up and let time speak for you. In a world where everyone shouts, the one who remains silent has control. In a world where everyone seeks to be seen, the one who becomes invisible becomes powerful. Presence is not about being everywhere. It's about being impossible to ignore when you are, and you only achieve that when you stop reacting. When you don't drag yourself emotionally through every word spoken, every gesture made, every expectation imposed by others. Many confuse being unreachable with being cold, but it's not about coldness, it's about emotional maturity. The one who reacts to everything is ruled by their environment. The one who chooses when and how to respond rules their life. And that is not isolation. It is sovereignty. Self-control is not repression. It's choice. Choosing not to fall for provocations. Choosing not to respond to messages that don't deserve your energy. Choosing to withdraw in time before you become the villain in a story that was never yours. Choosing silence when you know the explanation won't change anything. Because sometimes the greatest act of power is doing nothing. And when you become unreachable, something changes. The people who once manipulated you feel confused. Those who used you to unload their frustration can no longer find an echo. Those who expected to see you beg are faced with your absence, and you in silence, in calm, continue moving forward. The peace that comes from not having to respond, not having to clarify, not having to prove anything is indescribable. But to get there, you must go through a brutal process, detachment. You have to stop needing to be understood, to be loved, to be accepted, because as long as you keep begging for affection, you'll be reachable. And being reachable is being vulnerable to other people's games. The key is in the boundaries. Boundaries that are not shouted, that are not negotiated, that are not published. Boundaries that are felt, that are lived, that are respected because you respect them first. And when you live with clear boundaries, people perceive it. And yes, you may lose a few along the way, but they weren't losses. They were liberations. Learning to let go is also learning not to carry what is not yours. You can't rescue everyone. You can't be the emotional support of those who don't want to change. You can't be the eternal shoulder to cry on for those who use you as an emotional garbage. Can be brutally selective with your energy because it's not infinite. And every time you waste it on those who don't value you, you make yourself smaller to fit in spaces where you shouldn't be. Mystery. Silence, calm are not flaws. They are virtues of those who no longer need to shout to be heard. Those who no longer live to impress, but to be at peace. And that peace is so attractive, so magnetic, that those who see it want to have it. But they don't know that it can't be bought, faked, or stolen. It's built through painful decisions, letting go of what no longer fits. Choosing yourself above the rest. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: not responding is a declaration of power. Not entering the game is winning. Not giving explanations is protecting your energy. Silence is your sword, and self-control is your shield. And when you become unreachable, not because you're running away, but because you choose to, the world begins to look at you differently. Because the one who doesn't sell themselves is worth more. The one who doesn't seek to please earns respect. The one who doesn't respond controls the conversation without opening their mouth. That simple, that brutal, being unreachable is not disappearing. It's appearing strongly when you decide it's not stopping feeling. It's knowing what deserves to be felt. It's not being indifferent. It's having priorities. And when you understand that, you realize that you've always had the power. You just had to stop handing it away. So tell me, are you going to keep reacting to everything, letting the world dictate who you are? Or are you going to start choosing what reaches you, what touches you, what defines you? Because that choice, even if it doesn't seem like it changes everything, and you make it in silence, without announcing it, without asking for permission. Becoming unreachable is an act of self-love. It's telling the world, you won't have access to me just because I want to buy it because I can afford it. And that permission, my friend, is sacred guard. It protects it. And if someone tries to cross boundaries without invitation, let them meet silence as an answer. Not because you hate, but because it no longer affects you. And that is the real victory. Unreachable, not from arrogance, not from coldness, but because finally you are the master of yourself, and that is priceless. And if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you has already started to awaken a silent discomfort, a sense that something needs to change. And that although uncomfortable is positive, because it means you're no longer content with being the one who reacts to everything, the one who seeks to please, the one who constantly needs to be understood. Now it's time to talk about something more subtle, but deeply connected to the main idea: the energy you project when you take control of yourself. People perceive more of you than you imagine, even when you say nothing. It's not just about what you communicate verbally, but how you occupy your space, how you manage your time, the confidence you transmit. And this has a clear psychological basis. Humans detect even unconsciously when someone needs constant attention or validation. That need is noticeable, and when it's present, it makes you vulnerable. Being unreachable also means learning to care for how you relate to others emotionally. It's about not being always available, not out of selfishness, but out of respect for yourself. Not everyone needs to know your thoughts, your plans, or your deepest emotions. Being selective is not about closing off. It's about protecting yourself when you share too much with too many people. You lose value when everyone has access to you. You stop being special. Learning to establish a healthy emotional distance is an act of maturity. It means saying no, calmly taking the time you need without feeling guilty, and knowing how to be alone without anxiety. Because the difference between being alone and feeling lonely is huge. The first is a choice. The second is emotional dependence. Being clear about who you share your time and energy with is key. Not everyone deserves the same level of access to your life. Not everyone is equipped to take care of your vulnerability. That's why it's important to protect your inner space, not as a barrier, but as a form of self-care. Another important idea is this: your silence can have more impact than any explanation when you don't react as others expect, when you don't engage in unnecessary discussions, when you choose to respond from calmness or simply remain silent. You create a sense of security that commands respect. Many times, people seek a reaction to destabilize you, but if they don't find that reaction, they lose control over you. Self-control disarms. And here's a point that many people avoid. Confronting the character you've built to please may become a burden, that role you adopted to fit in, to feel accepted, to avoid conflict. It may have served you at some point, but if it no longer represents you, keeping it only takes you further from your essence. Authenticity has a price, yes, but living away from who you truly are has a much higher cost. And that emotional wear is silent. But constant leaving behind that character and showing up as you truly are is not easy. Some people will distance themselves, but they weren't real connections. They were bonds based on an artificial version of you. What remains after what stays is far more valuable. People who accept you without filters, relationships that are born from the genuine, and a peace that doesn't depend on external approval. Internal coherence is felt. It's noticeable in how you act, speak, even in how you are present. And that's what makes you strong. What gives you solid presence without needing to impose yourself. That's why the energy you save by not reacting impulsively, you can invest in yourself, in improving, in growing, in building something that speaks for you without needing explanations. Because every time you choose to withdraw in time, every time you decide not to get involved in what doesn't bring you value, you're strengthening your identity. And that shows it's perceived, it's respected. So now that you understand it, that you feel it, ask yourself this: what are you willing to leave behind to become a firm, centered person who no longer needs to react to everything to feel alive? Because being unreachable is not closing your heart. It's opening your eyes. It's not stepping away from the world. It's getting closer to yourself. And that inner connection, that emotional clarity is worth more than any external validation. And now that you've made it clear that becoming unreachable is a form of self-respect, we need to address something equally crucial, but rarely discuss the difference between controlling yourself and repressing yourself. Because it's not about staying quiet out of fear. It's not about avoiding conflict out of cowardice. It's about consciously choosing when to act, when to speak, and above all, when not to do so. Repression comes from fear. Self-control comes from clarity. Repressing yourself poisons you from the inside. Controlling yourself strengthens you from within. That distinction changes everything. Think about this. The one who stays silent out of fear accumulates resentment. The one who stays silent strategically accumulates power. And this is where a new dimension comes in. Little explored, but absolutely transformative, active patience. Do you know what? One of the most powerful qualities of those who seem unreachable is that they don't rush to respond to, correct, to take revenge, to clarify, because they understand that time, when used intelligently, is an ally. Active patience is not passivity. It's calculation. It's knowing that you don't need to rush, because nothing that comes from impulse usually lasts over time. The impulsive person acts today and regrets tomorrow. The patient one observes today and acts just when necessary. That difference separates those who live reacting from those who live directing. But patience is not easy. It requires trust in yourself, in your process, in the fact that you don't need to prove anything to keep being valuable. It requires holding the silence when your ego screams for you to speak. It requires being comfortable with uncertainty when your whole body wants quick answers and that inner battle. Silent is what defines your emotional strength. Now let's move on to another concept that fits perfectly here: managing your personal value. Because yes, you decide how much you're worth. And I'm not talking about self-esteem in the abstract, but something much more tangible. How you handle your time, your emotions, your energy. When someone can get your attention without having done anything to deserve it, you're discounting your own value. When someone can have total access to you through simple proximity or persistence, you're giving more than you're receiving. Personal value is not something said. It's something demonstrated. And it's demonstrated with boundaries. It's demonstrated with the kind of things you tolerate, with what you choose to ignore, with what you decide to let go, even if it hurts, especially when it hurts. And if we keep digging deeper, there's another idea that deserves its own space. The difference between presence and availability. Presence is knowing how to be. It's entering a conversation or a room and contributing without seeking attention. It's generating impact without effort, but availability. That's something else. It's always being there, always responding, always giving yourself. And when you confuse being present with being available, you end up emptying yourself, because the one who's always available stops being valued, and the one who's present consciously is remembered. The interesting thing is that many people fear not being available because they're afraid of losing connections, but they don't realize that that fear turns them into emotional slaves. I repeat, the fear of loss makes you a prisoner of what you no longer need here. We enter another valuable territory: emotional dignity. Dignity is not pride. It's not coldness. It's not indifference. It's knowing what you deserve, and not lowering yourself to anything less. It's not begging for explanations. It's not chasing answers from those who don't intend to give them to you. It's accepting that not everyone is going to understand you, and that's okay, because you're not here to convince anyone of your worth. You're here to live it, and living it means surrounding yourself with people who see it without you having to prove it, who respect your silence, who don't fill it with assumptions or demands. People who understand that when you choose silence, it's not punishment, it's a message. And those who don't know how to read that message shouldn't read the rest of you. Now let's talk about something that hurts, but that frees conscious rejection. Learning to reject what doesn't fit with you, even if it comes disguised as an opportunity, even if it comes at the moment you want it most. Because not everything that shines fits in your path. Sometimes true self-control is saying no to something you want because you know you deserve something better. And this is where the concept of being unreachable takes on a new depth. It's not about others not being able to have you. It's about you choosing who you allow to get close with a logic that prioritizes your emotional stability, your peace, and your process. Being unreachable is at its core, being invulnerable to what used to hurt you. It's knowing that your value doesn't go up or down depending on who stays or who leaves. It's having made peace with losing what no longer adds to you. It's looking serenely at what once disturbed you. It's feeling calmly what once broke you. It's choosing yourself again and again without drama, without noise, without spectacle. And when you get there, something changes, not only in you, in the environment too. You no longer attract those who seek weakness. You no longer seduce from lack. You no longer connect from the wound, because your energy has stopped begging. Now it is firm, it's stable, it's enough, and that transforms everything. Do you feel it? Then continue, because what comes after becoming unreachable is becoming free. And just when you think there are no more layers to uncover, the most subtle one appears, the most powerful, the one very few reach the tranquility of not needing anyone to understand you, to feel whole. That is the last frontier of self-control. Not only choosing what you say, but accepting that you don't have to be understood to have value. The world constantly seeks explanations, labels, definitions, but you're not here to be deciphered like a manual. You're here to live yourself, to be a well-managed mystery, to be a presence that doesn't need justifications. And listen to this carefully. It's not arrogance, it's depth. It's having dug so deep inside yourself that you can no longer settle for superficial relationships or empty validations. You've been through too much to keep lowering yourself to fit in. You've felt too much to keep pretending lightness. That's why the end of this journey is not a destination. It's a new way of walking, a way in which you're no longer pushed, because you decide your pace, a way in which you're no longer dragged, because you choose your direction, a way in which you no longer run to be seen, because you know that those who truly matter will notice you, even in silence. And if you still have doubts, if you feel that sometimes you falter, that you still react more than you wish, don't punish yourself. It's part of the process. Becoming unreachable is not a one-day goal. It's a daily practice. It's falling without getting lost. It's recognizing that sometimes it's hard. But even so, you choose to move forward now before you leave. I want to propose something. Write this phrase in the comments. My silence is not absence, it's dominion. I want to read it. I want to know how many are willing to live from that place of power, from that calmness that's non-negotiable. And if this video stirred something inside you, if it made you think about that version of you that no longer wants to keep reacting to the world, then subscribe. Because here we talk about what's not said, what's felt deeply about what they don't always explain to you, but which changes everything. And now I say goodbye, but not like everyone else does not, with a see you soon.
And if you'd like
Number
to
I
delve
say
deeper
goodbye
into similar topics,
with a silence,
I invite you
one
to
that
watch
weighs
these videos
one,
next.
that
Thank
leaves
you
space for you to fill it,
May
because
you
this is
always
not the
listen
end of
to
the
your
video.
heart, and
It's the
may you
beginning
never
of you
stop
that no
believing
one will
in the
be able to
power
reach.
of your silence.
I disappear